There are stories that change your mind, and there are stories that change your breath. This one will change the way you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Hildegard of Bingen healing visions in the moonlight, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something ancient within you. Have you ever felt just a whisper inside? Something tugging at the very edge of the day, a silvery pull beneath your bones. Maybe there was a time when the air seemed full, charged with a music only you could hear, a moment when you longed for the world to open in a new way, where silence felt sacred. And mystery didn't frighten you, it felt like home. That's exactly what Hildegard of Bingen once felt too. She wasn't born with answers. Like you, she was born into stillness, soft fields, northern sky, air scented with old trees and wet stone, a life that began surrounded by stories both spoken and silent, and sometimes in the hush before morning. Hildegard would close her eyes and the night would whisper back, tiny threads of color, a trembling on the edge of seeing. Not every child says like this, but maybe you did too, or perhaps you just wanted to believe. In Hildegard's earliest years, there was little but the language of the earth, the breath of wind between stones, the hush that follows a prayer when even the air seems to listen. Listen with me now, let's walk slowly into her world, bare feet touching cool stone, breath gentle, heart open to possibility, because tonight you're not here to learn about the past, you're here to remember your own widest longing, to meet an ancient mirror. As the moonlight falls across your sleeping room, there do you feel it? That quiet expectancy right behind your breath, in the way darkness cradles you, in the way every question tucks itself around your heart. This is the story of Hildegard, and within it, a path that winds through your own spirit's hidden orchard. Let it wash over you like slow rain, like a dream just beginning now. Close your eyes, let your breathing soften, and come with me. Hildegard's beginning was not loud, not golden. She started quietly, a small bud of a soul, soft, uncertain, but alive sometimes. The smallest voices belong to those carrying the biggest dreams, and sometimes the healing you seek has roots far beneath the surface. So let's settle in, give yourself to this moment, because her story is now yours too. She was the youngest child, you could almost miss her in a gathering, but in the gentle hours she felt music, not simply the kind you hear with your ears, but the murmuring underneath everyday life. She would catch the flicker of green, sense a pulse in the earth after rain, and feel an ache sweetest at night, to see the world as alive, a holy secret. Have you ever touched the grass and wondered if it missed you after you left? Have you ever watched clouds drift and felt them slip across your soul? These are not oddities to fear, they are invitations, just like those that called to Hildegard in her moonlit longing. Rest now. As the story folds soft around you tonight, you are both listener and traveler. The journey has only just begun. Let go, see where the vision leads. Oh, there are stories that change your mind, and there are stories that change your breath. This one will change the way you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Hildegard of Bingen healing visions in the moonlight, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something ancient within you. Have you ever felt an echo in your ribs meant only for you, or a longing across the back of your throat, like moonlight slipping through an open window? Maybe there was a time when silence sat beside your bed, whispering to you not of emptiness, but of possibility. A moment when dreams flickered at the edge of waking, half familiar, half waiting to be born. That's exactly what Hildegard felt too, before her name was ever pressed into pages, before the world listened, before her own courage poured quietly through the cracks in her nights. She was never just a woman of visions. She was a vessel for questions that weren't answered by daylight, for music that flowed beneath ordinary words, for a healing that began not with herbs, but with a sigh from somewhere older than her own bones. If you lie down with me, just for a while, let's step outside the hard edges of dates and deeds, and wander instead through feeling, through dreams, through the gentle hush that makes every soul a cathedral after dark. We're not here to memorize or to judge tonight. We're here to remember, piece by piece, how it feels to be reached by something pure, something quiet, and let it heal us. Salve our edges, open our eyes softer, the way Hildegard opened hers under the moon. The world she knew wasn't easy. Her nights were longer than most would ever guess. Sometimes the ache of being different pressed heavy on her chest. But somewhere below that ache she carried a hope, a trust that the unknown could speak through her, as it could speak through you too. So take a breath, let your heart settle into your sheets, and know, as the story bends forward, that this is not a history lesson. This is a slow invitation to meet your own shadow, to listen for your own light, to wander through Hildegard's longing, her listening, her courage, her surrender. Maybe this night is your own moonlit beginning, and maybe the story you need tonight is also the one your spirit has been longing to remember. Her early life began not with chorus but with quiet. She was born into a world that twisted between the sacred and the secret. In her little corner of the earth, the trees spoke if you listened, and the fields swelled beneath rain that seemed half-whispered from the heavens. Yet in the hush inside the stone walls and winding pathways of her home, Hildegard was a child whose heart beat not to the drum of certainty, but to the music of wondering. Think of a small girl wandering at dusk, picking at leaves that shiver between her fingers, watching the way sunlight pierces through orchard shadows. There are petals in her hands, and there are questions pressed beneath her tongue. Why am I like this? What is this ache in my chest? Why do I feel the wind when others only hear it? Her family loved her, but often from a distance. Sometimes they whispered of her strangeness, hopeful she would grow out of her quiet moods and dreaming eyes. Yet in the edges of every sigh and in the spaces between words, Hildegard felt something, a presence. Not a person, not a voice, but a warmth, as if the world itself wanted her to listen just a little longer, just a little deeper. In the still hours, she would curl beside the flicker of candlelight, her mind easing slow through the mysteries that adults would rush past. When the moon hung low, she let herself be carried by soundless lullabies, learning to trust the movements of her own breath. The hunger in her spirit was never for food or fortune, it was for connection to the invisible pulse beneath everything. The sheer serenity of being a child alone with wonder, hearing rivers sing, touching the lives of beetles and the green veins of leaves as if they contained secrets handwritten for her alone. She did not always feel brave. Her nights sometimes gnawed with worry, with small terrors. Would she ever be understood? Would she ever find others who listen without needing to fix or define? She watched the world through a prism of gentle awe, longing for a place where her heart could expand instead of shrinking, where her oddness would not be a burden but a blessing. So she waited. Sometimes the hardest part is just waiting, holding the ache and the wonder inside you, hoping it takes root. In the blurry distance, thunder would rumble, the horizon a promise and a mystery. And within Hildegard, a seed was stirring, slowly, quietly, beautifully, inviting her to trust the hunger, the listening, and the lonely spaces between, the same spaces you might feel in your own beginning. Oh, let the breath deepen, let the edges soften. Tonight you are not alone in your longing, and as Hildegard's sleep began beneath the old sky, so too may yours, ready for the first spark just beyond this gentle dark. There are stories that change your mind, and there are stories that change your breath. This one will change the way you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Hildegard of Bingen healing visions in the moonlight, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something ancient within you. Have you ever felt the hush of night like an invitation, gentle and wide, or sensed a wisdom threading through silence, waiting in the emptiness after the sun slips away? Maybe there was a time when your heart was so full, but your words were lost, or a moment when the moon seemed close, reminding you you are not alone in your longing. That's exactly what Hildegard of Bingen healing visions in the moonlight once felt too. She was a seeker, not made of untouchable marble, but real, like you, born into shadows, into pain, into questions too heavy for her small hands. Imagine a young soul awake at midnight, wrapped in uncertainty, but feeling somewhere that this ache might be a door. That the world, even when broken, is humming with possibility. We're not wandering through history tonight, we're searching for our own reflection in hers, the longing to belong, the need to heal, the wish to touch the light inside ourselves and perhaps inside others too. So settle into your breath, let the edges of the day soften. With every inhale, gather in the questions you've carried quietly for years. With every exhale, let go of the rush, the old labels, the dream that felt out of reach. You are not listening for answers. You are listening to remember. Hildegard's story is not about what she did, but who she became in the wild, beautiful dark, because sometimes all it takes is a whisper, a vision in the moonlight, a moment when the world hushes and something inside begins to root and rise. So tonight we travel slowly, letting each hush, each breath, open doors to your own holy places. Not to fall asleep quickly, though that's welcome here, but to drift, to soak, to find yourself right where you've always belonged, safe, seen, and perhaps just a little bit new. Let's begin. She was born into a world thick with rules and silences, an old rhythm pressing down on young hearts, but even in childhood shadows, Hildegard's inner world glimmered. There was a longing she didn't have words for, the kind that maybe you know too. Nights stretched long, and within them she asked her own secret questions, not the kind adults answer with facts or certainty, but the ones that pulse in the chest. Why do I feel different? Why is it so hard to breathe freely here? Inside every question, a ripple of hope, as if in the space between knowing and wondering, something soft was beginning to grow. Maybe, Even then, the moon cast cool light through her window, etching silver patterns across the floor as if inviting her to dream a different dream in her earliest memories. She learned to listen, not just to sounds, but to silence, to what moved behind the surface, to the voice that called her name from within, and on some sleepless and expectant night she chose not to turn away. The world was cold sometimes, and kindness came like the sun glancing off winter ice. There and gone, quick and dazzling, she felt both part of everything and forever a little distant. She was born for edges, for liminality, for slipping between worlds. Before all the visions, before the songs, there was this. A girl with her heart wide open, longing underneath the dark sky, dreaming of healing, of connection, of coming home. We will continue slowly, gently listening for the glow beneath the story, letting Hildegard's light awaken something in us. 2. Let's travel on. There are stories that change your mind, and there are stories that change your breath. This one will change the way you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, let's wander quietly through the glow of Hildegard of Bingen, healing visions in the moonlight, not as a lesson in some dusty book, but as a kind of mirror, lined with ancient candlelight, waiting for you to look in and remember a piece of yourself you thought you'd misplaced long ago. Have you ever felt like the world behind your eyes had its own language, a secret shimmer, or a hush that no one else could hear? Maybe there was a time when you stood outside on a night just like this one, heart tilted up toward the moon, and wondered quietly if there was more to you, more to this life, than anyone had shown you so far. A moment when you longed for some voice to break through the ordinary, to finally say, "You're not alone in feeling different. There's something whole and brilliant and quietly alive inside you." 2. That's exactly what Hildegard of Bingen once felt. Her story isn't a straight line across the ages, it's a spiral winding from an old stone convent, through forests and feverish dreams, into songs that still wash over us. Let's meet her. Not with facts or dates or the kind of history that dries out your heart, but by stepping inside her longing, her gentleness, her courage to see in the dark. Just imagine you're lying in a quiet field. Light wisps of grass warming your skin, air so pure you can hear your own thinking soften. This is where Hildegard's world begins for us. Not on a stage, but as a whisper in deep green shadows. Maybe, like her, you grew up with more questions than answers, feeling each season change not just in the air but deep in your bones. Maybe you, too, have waited for someone to recognize your spark, the wild, wandering spark that wasn't afraid to touch mystery. Feel the breath moving slowly now. We'll trace the path, not for what you might learn, but for what you might remember about your own healing, your own visions, your own hidden moonlight. Hildegard's story is a story of becoming, not famous, not even known in her time, but becoming real, waking up to tides of feeling that never made sense to others, like waiting for the sound of wings in a silent room. Together, in this quiet hour, we listen for her and for the piece of us who has always longed for the sacred, the soft, the more than ordinary. We are not searching for facts tonight, we are searching for soul, and in the stillness Hildegard is waiting. There are stories that change your mind, and there are stories that change your breath. This one will change the way you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Hildegard of Bingen healing visions in the moonlight, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something ancient within you. Have you ever felt a hush inside your chest, as if something soft within you is listening for a voice that isn't quite yours, but you miss it all the same? Have you drifted through a day and felt on the edge of a song just out of hearing, a mystery living just under the threshold of your ordinary thoughts? Maybe there was a time when you felt alone, even in a room full of voices. Maybe you wondered if your longing for something beyond the seen world was something secret, or if it was welcomed somewhere by someone, if it's even allowed. A moment when you longed for understanding, for presence, for a meaning you could almost taste in the air at dusk. That's exactly what Hildegard of Bingen healing visions in the moonlight once felt too. Not as an answer, not as a way out, but as a way in. A path through the mystery, not above it. A place where questions are not burdens, but invitations to breathe deeper, to listen softer. You don't need to know everything about Hildegard. You don't need to memorize her miracles or cite her books. Her greatest gift is the way she takes your own hidden longing and says, "Come with me. Let's listen to the moon together." Tonight isn't about lofty saints in stained glass or icy halos locked away in distant time. It's about waking up to the ancient human ache for the sacred. That same ache sits behind your own ribcage, fluttering when you're quiet, alive, even now. Rest here. Let's wander slowly into Hildegard's world, a world awash in songlight and shadow, green with hope and hungry for sky. She doesn't appear as a legend, but as someone who once gazed at a midnight sky and wished for a voice to answer back. Someone who knelt in dew and wondered if the world would mind, if she dared speak what she saw in her dreams. You are near her now, listening like she once listened, long before anyone knew her name. This is for the moment in you that knows there's more, even if the words aren't clear. Let me sit beside you in this darkness, your breath gentle, your worries softening. There's no pressure here to solve or perform, just the subtle hush of soul-meeting soul. In the next hour, let yourself fall slowly, weightlessly into the story, and come out the other side changed, even if only in the way your heart breathes when the world is quiet. This is Hildegard of Bingen, but it's you too. It's every hidden longing for the sacred, every wish you've made in the dark, every part of you that wants to heal, to see, to feel. And for tonight, it's enough to simply listen. Oh, there are stories that change your mind, and there are stories that change your breath. This one will change the way you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Hildegard of Bingen healing visions in the moonlight, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something ancient within you. Have you ever felt that your heart beats a rhythm just slightly different, like something sacred humming beneath your skin? Maybe there was a time when silence called to you louder than any crowd, or when the moonlight outside your window seemed to whisper that you belonged to something you couldn't quite name. A longing not for answers but for meaning. Like reaching for dew in the dark, for a truth you could almost touch yet stays soft and just out of reach. That's exactly what Hildegard of Bingen once felt 2 centuries ago. In a world woven with ritual and constraint, her spirit pulsed with its own quiet force. Imagine a child wrapped in the wide hush of the forest, bare feet on earth, eyes searching the in-between spaces. Long before she was named mystic, artist, healer, she was simply a girl with questions, with a strange tide moving inside her. When others prayed in formation, she watched the patterns of light and shadow. When others feared the darkness, she listened. The world to Hildegard was not made only of rules, but of breathing, shimmering connection. Have you ever wondered if your hidden dreams are just a little too much? If your feelings, your longing make you odd or set apart? Hildegard knew that ache. She lived with the sense that the world held more if only you'd sit long enough in silence, or lay back under a slow sky and let the wind sing you its secrets. This night isn't about lessons, it's not about history or facts or being good. It's about letting yourself listen to the resonance that Hildegard followed all her life. She trusted what shimmered at the edge of things. She found medicine in visions that came with closed eyes, like rivers, like bell chimes, like dreams after midnight. And so, if you've ever longed to feel less alone with your longing, if you've chased questions into the dark and watched your own breath curl up to the stars, you're in good company tonight. Let this story wrap around you like a second blanket, not as instructions or rules, but as an invitation. To be quiet enough to hear your own soul, to follow the pull of soft moonlight across the floor, and to trust that your longing is sacred too. We'll travel together, slowly breathing in, breathing out, leaving space for the story to echo inside you. For Hildegard was never just a saint or a scholar, she was a doorway, a shimmering, patient opening. And tonight, maybe you'll find you've been standing at that threshold. All along, let's begin. There are stories that change your mind, and there are stories that change your breath. This one will change the way you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Hildegard of Bingen, healing visions in the moonlight, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something ancient within you. Have you ever felt the urge to close your eyes and, in the quiet, sense the shimmer of another world, just barely there, as soft as moonlight through your curtains? Maybe there was a time when you woke before dawn, unsure why, but your heart was a little wild, certain that magic was somewhere close by, waiting, just out of sight. Or maybe you felt small, adrift in a world too loud, too harsh, craving a gentle touch, or the cool hush of a sacred place just for you. That's exactly what Hildegard, child of the Rhine Valley, dreamer under the German moon, once felt too before she was a saint, a scholar, or anything special. She was human, and she ached for meaning just as you have. She longed for belonging, for a way to make sense of the strange beauty and sorrow wrapped around her days. Imagine her, a young girl hidden away in a stone house, walls thick with silence, shadows curling at her feet, stars blinking just out of reach inside. There's this pulse that keeps calling, an invitation into wonder, wild and unknown. And even now, centuries later, her story ripples out, an ancient echo inside your own chest. Her name is still spoken in reverence. But you don't have to know her time or place. You don't need her language or her robes. Just bring the part of you that still wonders if life might be more than work and worry. Let your eyes grow heavy. Let your mind soften, your spirit drift, because somewhere in the blue hush of this evening, Hildegard walks beside you, her steps quiet on the earth, her dreams igniting something gentle and true. You're not alone here. You never are. We'll drift together, following the silver thread of visions, learning how someone like you, born into silence, could turn longing into music, pain into healing, and loneliness into luminous possibility. Tonight, you're invited to sink below the surface, and to let your guard fall away, to rest inside the soul of a woman who saw the world not as it was, but as it could be, bathed in 1,000 shades of moonlight and hope. So breathe, settle in, let your journey begin. The first breath of Hildegard's life came in a place not much different from the quiet corners you sometimes retreat to when life grows too much. The air smelled of river, mist, and earth. This was a world that moved slow. Seasons painting the fields in color and shadow, but inside the little girl, something moved even slower. Her childhood was a steady unfolding, barely noticed except in the darker secrets echoing off stone, a hunger for something only she could feel before words. She knew loneliness. She understood aching, that strange mix of emptiness and hope. The same longing that flares inside you when the world goes quiet. She listened for voices on the wind, for messages in the flicker of candlelight, for confirmation that she was not broken or strange, just unfinished, still being whispered into. Sometimes at night, she placed her hands over her heart and wondered, am I meant for anything more than this? There were times her questions felt like mist, shapeless, impossible to grasp, but the ache was a kind of guidance. It led her inward into a secret garden where visions would one day bloom. She learned early on that silence is not emptiness. Silence is how the world listens back. Do you remember a night when you felt that too? Maybe even now, as you rest your head, you feel the echo of the longing Hildegard once knew, the longing to belong, to understand, to feel seen, completely and gently. She was just a child, yet somehow she became a vessel for something bright and ancient, burning quietly in the dark. Let's walk beside her a little further. Beneath the cool wash of night, let the story carry you downstream, letting the longing soften, letting the silence teach you. There's a rhythm beneath every struggle, a sacred beat beneath every soul story. With each breath, we're learning, drifting ever deeper into the moonlit heart of Hildegard of Bingen. Just breathe and feel that heart waking gently in you tonight. There are stories that change your mind, and there are stories that change your breath. This one will change the way you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Hildegard of Bingen, healing visions in the moonlight, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something ancient within you. There's an ache in all of us, a dim but faithful pulse that wonders, am I alone in my longing? Have you ever felt your heart wander in the soft hush before dawn, or sensed a faint dream echoing through the rush of your day? Maybe there was a time when you caught yourself wishing, really wishing, for something nameless, hoping there was more to this life than the measured rhythm, the ordinary tasks. That quiet wish, that's the same longing Hildegard carried. Not a grand, blissful certainty, but a wondering. Sometimes the most mystic people never set out to be anything other than awake. Tonight, as you settle in, it's safe to let go of the distractions. Let the gentle drift of your inhale and your exhale be part of something older. Imagine your life as a river winding through midnight fields. Imagine the moon, kind and wise, following you for miles and miles. Tonight, you're in the company of someone who walked those dark fields before you. It was never about being extraordinary. It was about being attentive to the hush under the noise, the stillness beneath all striving. As we slip into the gentle unfolding of Hildegard's story, remember, we're not crossing time to idolize a saint. We're listening for the echoes in your own bones, the ones you rarely let out into the light. Maybe you've had moments you couldn't explain, a blooming inside the chest, a sudden knowing, a brush with something mysterious while everyone else moved through the day as if nothing happened. That's exactly what Hildegard felt too, growing up beneath shifting skies, dreaming in the shadows. She wasn't born wise or certain, she just noticed, again and again, what most people miss. You don't have to believe in miracles to let this story be medicine for your tired heart. You don't have to feel mystical to rest in the glow of someone who was brave enough to listen. Let everything outside your room dissolve. Let the night wrap its arms around you. See if you can breathe slow, surrendering just a little more with every gentle exhale as the world softens. The story begins not as history, but as invitation. Let's walk slow into the moonlit meadow of her soul and yours together. There are stories that change your mind, and there are stories that change your breath. This one will change the way you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Hildegard of Bingen healing visions in the moonlight, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something ancient within you. Have you ever felt the hush that falls just after sunset, the world around you settling, night filling up each restless space inside? Maybe there was a time when the weight of silence felt like an invitation, like your soul was being quietly called somewhere deeper. A gentle, wordless wondering, who am I really in the stillness between heartbeats? Maybe you remember lying awake, not quite young, not quite grown, listening for something, that soft ache that's not pain but longing. You sense it in the slow drift of moonlight over your blanket, the way shadows gently paint your room. That ancient pull, the one that says, even here, even now more is waiting, not out there, but right here in you. That's exactly what Hildegard once felt too. Maybe not in your language, not with your questions, but the same hush, the same ache. There she was, a child in the German countryside centuries ago. Her world full of stone walls, thick forests, cool streams, but also the silence of uncertainty. The sky so full of stars, you wonder if anyone could see you through them. Hildegard's soul felt questions, not answers. Like you, there were days she'd sense invisible things moving through her, soft currents no one else seemed to notice. Her family's voices in the next room, the coolness of the morning air, the way a bird lifts off a branch. It was quiet, almost ordinary, but behind it, a restlessness, as if some secret was breathing alongside her, calling her deeper. There are moments when we long for a voice not outside but inside that says, "You belong here, you are not strange for feeling so much." Hildegard's longing was for belonging, yes, but more for understanding. For some gentle way to make sense of beauty and pain, to know why night feels so tender and dawn so generous, to find herself at home in the world, not just living in it. She would lie awake, see colors that felt like music, hear music that felt like color. Her breath would slow, her mind soft as moss, her heart wide open. She didn't know not then that visions could be seed and soil, or that her restlessness was actually a doorway. That being touched by mystery is how we all begin. So tonight, come into this story slowly, there's no rush, you don't have to solve or strive or prove. Just breathe here with me for a little while. Let go. Imagine yourself not as an outsider listening in, but as a soul returning home. All that heaviness, just place it down beside you. Your questions, your doubts, your old stories. Lay them down, for Hildegard, for you, for all of us. There is room here for not knowing, for longing, for the quiet that comes before dawn. The quiet that changes everything. Quiet, soft as moonlight, that's where our story begins. Now in these pauses in this story, maybe you'll feel something echo. As if Hildegard's vision, wrapped in moonlight, was written for the hidden places in you too. Welcome to this journey. Welcome home. Let's begin. There are stories that change your mind, and there are stories that change your breath. This one will change the way you walk through the world. Tonight on The Modern Mystic, we enter the quiet brilliance of Hildegard of Bingen, healing visions in the moonlight, not as a figure in history, but as a mirror to something ancient within you. Have you ever felt like you're searching for something you can't name? That misty pull just beyond the edges of your days, as if there's a secret melody only you can hear if you stop and listen under the moonlight. Maybe there was a time when you woke up before the world, before the clatter and rush took hold, and the silence whispered its own questions into your chest, making you wonder what else is possible for a soul like yours. Maybe you've stood at your window or paced a narrow hallway, puzzling over the ache in your spirit that doesn't have a name, craving meaning that lives somewhere beyond problems and plans. That's exactly what Hildegard of Bingen once felt too. In her world, the wind touched stone and echoed through cloisters, while longing, her oldest companion, sat quietly beside her. Let's pause and let the weight of our days settle for a moment. Imagine it, Germany, almost 1,000 years ago.